So my questions this morning begin with, why does an acorn become an oak tree? Or a caterpillar become a butterfly? Or a tadpole become a frog? Why? How? Right? Most of nature experiences a metamorphosis of sorts, and so do we. As they grow and they change, they encounter life from a different perspective, one they never even realized existed, let alone thought about. As we grow and change, we encounter life from a different perspective as well. We become more. We gain the wisdom of experience so we can share that knowledge. We experience life at its fullest from the inside out. And that's what we're called to do. We become free. We become peaceful, wanting to be in service. Our mantra then becomes, how can I serve, instead of what's in it for me? Giving us that opportunity to touch the lives of others, to help create that peace on this planet that we all so strive for. Anne Frank said this, the best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere where they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature, and God. Because only then does one feel that all is as it should be, and that God wishes to see people happy amidst the simple beauty of nature. So change is one of the inevitables we get to experience in life. So our choice is, do we accept it or do we resist it? Do we accept it gracefully or do we choose to suffer through our days while we're here? We can learn from nature the art of allowing life to be just as it is. Nature trusts life. It lives in the present. It doesn't really have a choice, does it? Often when I see like a lot of birds flying around, it reminds me of how incredibly abundant and dependable this universe is. Have you ever heard a bird, or any other creature for that matter, complain because someone didn't set their food out, or because they didn't set out enough food for them? Well, of course not, because they're cared for. Nature cares for itself. In the Bible it says, look at the birds in the sky, they do not sow or reap, they gather nothing into barns, yet they are fed. We're cared for in that very same way. And it goes on to say, can any of you, by worrying, add a single moment to your lifespan? That's really something to think about, isn't it? In fact, we lose each and every present moment that we spend in worry. We have the ability to trust at that same level that the birds and all the other creatures do. And we do that by becoming aware of who we are at our very core. That awareness allows us to perceive possibilities rather than difficulties, to feel that connection with our life source, and to see outcomes as working out rather than failing. Life is a process. We are a process. The universe is a process. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, the happiest man is he who learns from nature the lesson of worship. And I like to add to that, and trust, because trust is key. Wayne Dyer tells us in Excuses Be Gone that making a change in our thoughts, our beliefs, and our behaviors, it's optional. We all know that. We can stay where we are and see the world the way we see it. We can choose not to grow, not to expand, not to live life to its fullest. It's entirely up to us. However, when we choose to be who we are and to live up to our full potential, our life becomes richer. It becomes more meaningful, not just for us, for everyone around us. We can grow in ways that we never thought possible. We begin to realize, well, maybe I'm not too old. Maybe I'm not any of those things I've been telling myself for such a very long time. We can greatly benefit by getting back to the time before we were so deeply embedded with those conditioned thoughts. We can elevate our lives by taking responsibility for who we are, for what we're choosing to become. And we do that through our awareness. We can transcend the ordinary, the mundane, the average with thoughts of greater joy and greater meaning in our lives. We can go on beyond where we presently are. That's exciting, isn't it? We don't have to be stuck. Because at our core, we are an extension of the divine, the very source of life itself. And that divine element is an intrinsic part of all of us. We can acquire a new set of beliefs, and that includes our spiritual, our God-realized nature. Wayne Dyer asks a really interesting question. This is always something that I probably read this 20 years ago, and it's always stayed with me. If no one told me who I was, who would I be? That's pretty deep if you really think about that and let go of those conditioned thoughts. If no one told me who I was, who would I be? You wouldn't have all those preconceived ideas. You wouldn't have those conditioned thoughts. You would be free to be who you are. And your higher self knows exactly who you are, what your desire is, what your unique contribution to the world is. Just because you don't have a recollection of having been anything other than where you are today or who you are today doesn't mean that your nature is unchangeable. Life itself will shift to accommodate you when you begin to know your unquestionable ability to elevate it. Entirely up to you. Philosopher Bertrand Russell wrote this: if human nature were unchangeable, the situation would be hopeless. What passes as human nature is at most 1/10 nature and the other 9/10 being nurture. In other words, whatever you believe to be your nature, allow it to be nurtured. Remember to do that consciously. Remember to choose well. When you let the divine grow and expand within you, an incredible awareness will be what you bring to all aspects of your life. Not just one or two, all aspects of your life. And that idea of oneness will navigate your life. And that's something we talk about a lot here, is that oneness. And in order to realize your oneness with Spirit, we have to let go of the idea of separation. We are not separate from our source. As we do that, as we recognize that oneness, we bring ourselves back to our original nature. We can see through the illusions of our life experiences. We practice being in alignment with our source, paying close attention to our thoughts. If we perceive or we feel that our thought is out of alignment with our true nature, guess what? We can change that. We can correct that thought. We can choose another thought. We can replace it with a better one. And by doing that, we are activating that divine guidance. Alignment is simply the movement into a state of awareness, aware of your connection with Source, with life. And cultivating awareness is the preliminary activity in the eye opening experience of meeting our authentic self. That place within that recognizes and knows that with God, all things are possible. All things are possible. Wayne Dyer, I love his, I love him. I love his explanation of source. He says the source energy is a creating, giving, abundant, loving, joyful, non-judgmental, all things are possible, invisible mechanism. Is that great? He said it's always giving, always serving, always an endless supply. It isn't really doing anything, yet nothing is left undone. Isn't that the truth? When we are in alignment with this do anything and everything energy, we're honoring and living in our true nature. We enjoy life a heck of a lot more. Miracles are not only a daily experience, they become that moment-to-moment experience. We become more focused on what it is we intend to co-create as opposed to what we don't have or what we don't want. We stay in that higher energy. Our goal is to always think in terms of gratitude. Gratitude for all that we have and all that we can do. With trust, we can let go of experiences, our past experiences, and realize that it doesn't have to be that same way next time. We can choose differently. We can think and act based on how we feel and what we think, how we feel about something. We don't have to abide by someone else's opinion. Someone else's opinion is really perfect and great for them, just not for you. By staying aligned with what we intend to create and knowing that the universe is all providing and that you are worthy of that unlimited supply from the all that is, you will continuously attract that which is for your highest good. God is always present in all things, in all situations, and you always have the power to bring yourself back into harmony with your true nature. And our true nature is a much higher awareness than our earthbound form. So the key is trust. Trusting the universe, trusting life, trusting all that is. We want our awareness to be such that we recognize and know that I am thou which thou art, and thou art that which I am. I love that mantra. Mantras are wonderful tools for us to use in realigning ourselves with our source. And the beauty of mantras is you can make up your own. You use words that resonate with you, words that bring you to that higher awareness. Mala beads are great. They're like rosary beads, right? And you're counting and repeating that mantra over and over. And the idea is just to keep focused on that beautiful thought that you've come up with and really connect with your source and become realigned. As long as we keep up walls inside of us that are contrary to realizing our oneness with Source, we're bound to remain behind those walls and keep that at a distance. We tend to, the human condition, right? We tend to hide and make excuses as to why things maybe don't work out for you or why life is unfulfilling. And it doesn't have to be. Not when we're aligned and connecting. So part of our work is to rid ourselves of that resistance, to crumble those walls that we have up in our mind. We do that by putting our commitment to our spirituality high on our priority list. We soften our heart toward ourselves and toward others. That's just what Gina was singing about. We stop playing that blame game, be it we're blaming ourselves or others or a circumstance or a situation, blaming anything for our life experience. We begin to listen deeply to what others are saying, what others might be feeling, becoming more compassionate and more caring. In other words, being completely open and vulnerable. Ooh, the V word. None of us really like that one much, do we? It's about being the hands and feet of God expressing in this world. It's about embracing humanity and expressing divinity. Infinite love is the essence of who we truly are. The only real problem that we ever encounter in our life is forgetting who we are and forgetting the power that we possess. When we remain in that higher state of awareness and alignment, life goes along a lot more smoothly. We begin to see those synchronicities that happen so frequently, and then we tend to call them miracles, which is awesome. That means you're noticing them. And miracles aren't really possible because of anything we do. They're possible because of the nature of life, of our being in alignment with Source and our willingness to participate in that co-creation. We don't personally work those miracles. Those miracles are worked through us as we open our hearts more deeply to love. Sometimes we forget that God cannot do for us what cannot be done through us. When things aren't exactly the way we'd like them to be, I'm sure none of you do this, but I've been guilty of, whining and worrying, forgetting that we can call upon that power and that presence to be an interference in our lives. We tend to overlook that notion that every situation is about God. God is in the middle of all of it. Whether it's a financial condition, whether it's a relationship or politics or whatever else, God is there. All situations have God. Comes down basically to this. We are either standing on the ground of our true reality, our God selves, or we have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten that power within. We're given as many opportunities to reconstruct the nature of our lives as there are moments in a day. Because we're always at choice, each and every moment. The time to show up fully, completely, and cooperate with life is right now. Whatever the circumstance. The decision to be the divine attracts the divine. And situations that seem to just happen aren't random at all. Because with every thought, we ourselves make the decision to be in the flow or not. I'm going to close this morning with a short quote from Marianne Williamson's book, Everyday Grace. When our minds are no longer fragmented by the illusion of separation from each other, but healed by the truth of oneness, we are awakened to a new dimension of compassion. Within the mantle of that love, there is literally nothing we cannot do. We have remembered who God is. We have remembered who we are. Finally, we are whole at last. Thank you so much for being here this morning while I shared this truth as I understand it.